So hello world, my name is Amelia, and you know what? I think I finally might have discovered the secret to me making, I don't know, shorter videos or something that's actually just in general very therapeutic for me. So hey, the fact I don't have very many viewers, maybe that just can help with the overall factors of that was a weird thing I just saw out of the corner of my eye. Anyways, I am going to get straight to the point. Today is the day after the last video I uploaded. It is Friday, 4:47, and I just got off of work. I cannot explain why my nose is so red right now. So if my nose looks really red, I can't really explain it right now. I gotta love Missouri drivers. How they like to get on the highway in a very awkward order, or they don't speed up when they come down on ramps, and then when you're the person from Chicago who speeds up when you come down on ramps, people have to be stupid about speeding up and then getting in your way. So yeah, not fun driving in Missouri. But anyways, to the point. I don't know what's going on with my hair right now. This kind of drives me crazy because I brushed it very, very well this morning, and look at it already. And I don't know, maybe it's that red. Anyways, I'm ranting right now. Stop it. I got off work about an hour ago. I have a lot to do today. It's funny because I have another 2 days off. I don't know how my schedule ended up this way. I had 2 days off, then I got to work today, then another 2 days off, a weekend, which is great because the weather is going to get suddenly a whole lot nicer come tomorrow and Sunday. Right now it's okay. It's just around a couple degrees less than 60, rainy. You can probably hear the rain in the background. Of course, it doesn't help that I broke my wiper the other day when it decided to snow randomly in Kansas City. I went to go use my wiper, and it was, unknowingly to me, heavy wet snow, so the wiper went to swing, and it just snapped the wiper off the bracket. I was like, oh no. So yeah, so right now I'm driving to the auto parts store to grab a new set of wipers, which I'm not really exactly sure the last time I put wipers on my car. They've been fine. Anyways, so yeah, a little sprinkle, gotta deal with that. I also need to get new tires on my car this summer. I bought this car with the impression that the tires still had quite a bit of life in them, but then I went and a couple of my tires started like getting low on air for no real explainable reason. And I went and took it into Discount Tire, and they were like, "Oh, your tires are getting really close to end of life." And I'm like, really? I'm like, I thought they were, the car's a 2016, has 50,000 miles. I think I bought this with 38,000 miles, and I've had it for just a little over a year now. I think like 14 or 15 months. So, I'm sure there was someone gonna try to run me over. So, yeah, and they were like, and I mentioned that, and they were like, well, actually, by the looks of the tire, their brand and things like that, they're like, I think it's the original tires that came on the car. I'm like, really? Like, they could really get, because I'm just used to tires wearing out faster than that. But anyways, that's getting, not necessarily a discussion I want to have. So this morning, I come in, it was actually not that bad of a day, actually. I think having those couple of days off, it really helped me reset emotionally with a lot of stuff going on. A lot of my days off in the past 3 weeks have just been one here, one there. So having 2 whole days off and being able to, I don't even really think I did anything therapeutic. Oh my gosh, I was a little gassy. Anyways, I did not quite make that turn right. Anyways, at least I can get in my parking spot. So, first 3 hours, fine. Then at 9 o'clock, the one coworker I have that is a little bit of can sometimes trigger me the wrong ways, came in, and I mean, she was fine. Didn't like, and I know I kind of we had a head cashier go home, so a supervisor, he was up at the customer service desk, and then I was also up there kind of filling in, because that used to be my old job, was customer service desk. So I was really good at jumping in, and then orders were coming in while that was happening. I was like, I kind of feel bad leaving all those orders to her, but I'm like, this is important. Then there was somebody out in garden who called, and they were like, oh, hey, so-and-so's out here. I can't seem to ring this up. And I'm like, you know what? I'll come out and look at it. Go out there, and she had like 10 people in line. I was like, I'm like, I can't really just walk away. I fixed it for her, figured out why the register. Yeah, I didn't find out why. Obviously, it's just poor programming on the developers' parts. Which, you want to talk about bad app design? Today I discovered, because they pushed this like update to all of our Zebra phones, and they pushed it a while back, but for some reason like only half the phones took the update, which I think has something to do with their age. Like, if half of them are probably too old to get the latest Android version, that's what this big update was for. Well, along with the update, they also launched this like new launcher, company branded launcher. It literally looks like they might have taken something and modified the source code or something like that, which they're not unknown for doing that. They have done that before. So for the longest time, I was just sitting there, I was like, what is the right? So like half of them upgraded, and then like didn't even get upgraded properly. A lot of them are really screwed up. Like, now the apps we use on them, our Push the Talking app, our voice app, our orders app, for some reason they don't like synchronize your login correctly. You can literally log into the launcher, and then when you go to open up the apps, it'll be some other employee, or you'll be stuck on some other extension. And yeah, something's wrong. Something's definitely wrong with the data and everything. And yes, I grabbed Taco Bell on the way home because I needed some comfort food. So, and then all of a sudden I discover I was down in lumber talking to one of the supervisors, and she was putting together an order for one of our big pro customers, and I was sitting there making the comment about about the problem, and she's like, oh, you need to log out, which of course that wasn't actually what I needed to do. And then she's like, and I'm like, but they got this new launcher, and there's no button to log out. Like before, you would just hit a little drop down and then hit log out, which that was even bad design, because when you hit the log out, it didn't say, are you, because it'll say, do you want to log out? And then on the old phone, the only option was, okay. It's like, yeah, you can't hit, no, I don't want to log out. You literally have only, okay. But then I was like, there's no log out button. And she's like, oh yeah, it's there. I'm like, where? I'm like, this stupid ass launcher that like only has certain apps in it, that it doesn't even have the apps I actually use. I have to go down to the bottom of this list. There's a bunch of other weird things they did with the upgrade, but the main thing is I'm like, they're literally right on the home screen. There's this like up arrow, and you slide on that up arrow, and then comes up the app drawer. Okay, cool, good design. But it turns out they hid the logout button to the left, because there's no indication that the desktop slides left and right. There's the main screen. There's only the home screen. It only gives you an indication that home screen, that's all there is, and then you slide up. And that would be fine. Not to mention there's a couple buttons at the top of that, like for your extension, which isn't even integrated correctly. But all of a sudden I come to find out you swipe right. That's hilarious. Tinder reference, right? And then all there is on the left home screen is your name at the very top and a big button that says log out. And I'm like, okay, horrible, horrible design. I'm like, here's an arrow that teaches you on first use. Slide up, there's your app drawer. There is no indicator on this home screen that you slide right and then there's more options, which it's very underutilized. We have phones that are broken from the upgrade and so forth. Anyways, I'm rambling. Bad design. Same thing all over about these stupid things. I don't even know where I was getting with that. So yeah, took care of that line. I kind of enjoyed it. It was definitely an enjoyable day, but I had stamped my fingers, which that's actually not bad for you, believe it or not. Just kind of another thing is like from yesterday talking about those stressors and things like that is just the fact that something I did think about yesterday, and I think it was kind of one of the reasons I was a little stressed yesterday, was because I was thinking about the whole factor of going to school. I definitely realize what I want to do with college is a lot of work. I would love to just, it's definitely that kind of thing where it's like, I would just love to be doing what I want to do. And of course, getting into the medical field, that's just not possible. You have to get an education. You have to get experience. I do really like the idea of getting into medicine just because it does, to me, it seems like a very, not academic, a very learning environment that even, it seems to me from what I've seen, that even after you get out of college and you get a career as a doctor or a nurse, there's still, at least from what I've observed through people I know who are in the medical field, there's still a bit of a mentoring of people who have been doing it longer to teach you new things, to teach you things they have learned through their experience that you didn't pick up through school. And that kind of excites me because I don't think there's very many other fields I've seen that kind of knowledge. It's a very universal field with a very universal goal. It's not like you're working for one company that's making a product and then you're like learning little tricks from people who have always made that one product. This is like one product that's universally produced and fixed, and that's the human body. So it kind of excites me universally, it being a learning and mentoring environment. And that's one thing that excites me about getting into medicine. It's not just what I want to do. It's not just the people I want to help. It's also being in that kind of environment. And I realize medicine, it's definitely got a pecking order. There's a lot of dog eat dog. Even my VR coach yesterday, again, don't know what to call her. Apparently she used to be a nurse, and she was talking to me about how she's like, oh yeah, medical doctors always talk down to you as a nurse. Matter of fact, I saw a few episodes of Grey's Anatomy, which surprisingly I actually got really into. Never in my life watched at least very many episodes of a TV doctor series. I think Diagnosis Murder was like the closest I ever came. And even in there in one earlier episode, there was a joke about I think one of the incumbent medical doctors was sitting there like, stupid nurse, and here she is coming in. I think it was Gray, but she was coming in, and then there's the joke about, she's like, did you just call me a nurse? It's just like, excuse me, I went to medical school. Which that gets into interesting things about medical anthropology, which, by the way, I was reading online is actually kind of a recommended class for people getting into medicine, and I thought that was really cool. So what was really interesting is just the factor of, I love what it is, and that makes me excited. But it is a very long learning, in not to mention money. And I'm excited about the learning, but I'm also stressed out about the learning. I'm really excited. Like, even today I was doing my homework for the CNA position, and all I could do is look at that homework and just be like, oh my gosh, this is so grueling. And I'm like, sentence after sentence about, long-term care facilities. And I understand, like, that was kind of it sounds to me that was kind of the primary reason why CNA positions came about, was it's about being an assistant in like long-term home, basically to the elderly, to geriatric patients. And it was kind of boring, but then like I was reading down and it was talking about the different kinds of nursing methods, practices out there. And it came across one, and it was like the fourth one on the list, the very last one. And it said something about very, like, in personal medical care, something. It was fascinating. I can't remember what the word was. Funny enough, I actually did bring out, well, I basically said it. I brought my nursing book with me. So it's yeah, right here. It was the fourth one. It says patient-centered or patient-focused care. And I read it, after reading the first three, which were primary nursing, functional or modular nursing, team nursing. They all sound like still boring, in long-term facilities and things like that. I was like, because it was even talking about here how nursing assistants were kind of a thing that was invented. Back a long time ago, nursing assistants weren't even trained. They practically got hired and they just learned experience on the job. And then the state started passing regulation to start making a quality standard. The big thing that was with nursing assistants was giving people an opportunity to get into medicine basically without having to go to a big degree school or college, which kind of exactly why I'm doing this. But then the fourth one was the patient-centered. And it literally talks about how the patient-centered method gives nursing assistants, I love what it was saying here. It says members of the nursing team are cross-trained to perform tasks that have been done by other departments. For example, a nursing assistant may be trained to draw blood for laboratory tests or do an EKG instead of relying on a technician from another department to come and do these tasks. And it basically goes on to say many nursing assistants now are actually getting hired for acute care settings outside of basically long-term, because acute is a short-term care. And it says right here, keep a lookout for taking it to the next level, advanced skills. It talks about where, like, opportunities. It's saying, like, what's happening is we're seeing a shift where nursing assistants are now even going above and beyond what was typical. How did my phone start tilting? That was weird. I don't know when that happened. Above and beyond the basic certification process, are getting more certifications, more experience, and are getting to the point that now they are, I like how there was someone just, like, literally sitting behind me. I was like, what the frick are they doing over there? Now they're starting to get training skills that used to be exclusively reserved for licensed, like, registered RN nurses. And I was hearing, so this is a fascinating thing. Look at me, I'm getting all geeky about this. I was also told recently about the whole factor that we're seeing a shift in the medical industry, where with the cost of medicine and the fact that doctors are starting to take a more of a, like, back in the day you had the family doctor who focused, and the book even mentions it, who focused on, like, a broad spectrum of care. And then we saw a shift where doctors started going into specialized areas of medicine. And then more recently, we're starting to see that come back together into that kind of family doctor structure, but instead it's coming down into a group of healthcare workers helping one individual. And my heat is too hot. And basically it's starting to come back together. Well, they said what's actually happening is now there's this shift where those specialty doctors are going even kind of more into specialty, dealing with things like surgical matters, or, like, really critical, where they have to step in because it's a critical thing, because they're no longer calling the shots. They're just there when something is needed. So what's happening is things like nurse practitioners and physician's assistants are starting to step in to take the acute care for the people coming in for acute situations. So now that I'm, like, reading this stuff about nursing assistants, I'm like, we're seeing this overall shift in the medical industry. And I really do hope in the future it makes, especially being where I want to get into specifically with medicine, with the transgender care, I have these like really grandeur dreams of being able to get connected with people like Dr. Gray at Kansas University, who did my bottom surgery, and just be like really expressing how excited I am to do this. Point is, I just spent 10 minutes on something meaningless, and then another 10 minutes ranting about medicine, which I don't even know if anybody would be interested in that. That was me showing my geeky side. I need to end it here. The point is, I thought about it last night, and I was like, okay, let's see. Because it was going over everything that's required. I have some prerequisites required for me to apply for nursing school. There's about at least another semester, half a semester maybe, of general education they want you to have. Which, by the way, I looked at that list, and English 101 was on there. I'm like, yes, I'm getting that one done now too. Yeah, that'll get checked off. And there's a few more on there. I'm like, you know what? I can pull this whole list up. I'm like, I'm just going to start jumping into these. And then something occurred to me, because after that, then I got 2 years to become an RN. There's another 2 years to get a BSN. Another 2 years to go to an MSN to get a master's in nursing. And then there's probably still a filler in there to get a nurse practitioner. And then it occurred to me, I was just like, you know what? Just out of curiosity, what are the requirements for medical school? And yes, there is a lot more prerequisites for medical school. And a lot of them actually are a lot of the same prerequisites for nursing school, or the general education that comes during nursing school. So I was just kind of looking at it, and I was like, you know what? Maybe what my goal right now needs to be with college. Yes, people ask, I'll say, I'm going to get into nursing. That's just the goal. But I'll kind of feel it out, see how it goes, see how I can fund my living situation, how my divorce goes, my future from here. Am I going to need to settle down quicker, or do I have 10 years to sit back and finally do what I should have done 10, 15 years ago? And if I really, really, truly enjoy the education and it works out for me, I will keep doing these general educations. Not to mention, I enjoy some of these subjects that were requirements for pre-med. I mean, there was quite a few of them, but like statistics, I've always heard statistics are a really fun thing to learn. And when I was reading about that, I saw statistics are either they want you to have like arithmetic or statistics. Most med schools want you to have that. And I saw that and I was like, statistics, I've heard that's actually fun. I'm like, well, maybe I'll just do that anyways, even if I am getting into nursing. But the general point is, and the medicine anthropology was recommended. And then on top of that, they said med schools usually like to see that you have a passion for the patient. They said when you're applying for med school, that's usually a big thing they like to see because you have to make a solid argument for your admission to med school. You have to write a personal statement, they said, for most med schools, and state how why you're doing this, and talk about your passions and the things you want to do. And I have a very solid foundation for that. My goal is to help the community, the trans community. And they said they really want to see that the person is already doing what they want to do at the end. Like, they're not just sitting back saying, oh, I'm just doing education, I've never stepped foot in a clinic. And they said, matter of fact, it was this like blog post thing. I can't even, talk on their credibility, but it was interesting. And they said something that's very interesting is they said they highly recommended that anybody who wanted to get into med school with the goal of becoming an MD should actually consider becoming a CNA first. And I read that, and I was reading all that, and I was like, you know what? And then I was like, well, how long is med school? 4 years. Now, yes, you got about a 3 or 4 year residency after you graduate, but that's starting. That's the starting point, I think. You get to practice what you learned. And that's a whole different subject when the time comes, but let's just say this much. Oh yeah, and then also they like to have letters of recommendation for med school, which honestly, if I did get connected with people like my PCP and Dr. Gray, I mean, you know, they're people who are passionate about the trans community as well. I don't think it'd be very hard for me to reach out to them and be like, hey, do you think you could give me a letter of recommendation for getting into becoming a medical doctor? It's one of those things I'm right now, it's very, very early on in the touching on it phase. But it's just one of those things where I just think about it. I'm just like, you know what? If I want to go for an NP, which could take me up to 10 years, you know, because there was something that kind of stuck in my mind last night. I saw Dr. Varon at KU. He's a neurologist. And I remember telling him about how I was like, you know, I think I want to become a nurse practitioner. And I mentioned how when I was younger, I actually did want to become a medical doctor. That's one of my biggest inspirations. And I've said this before. Now, once I transitioned, I feel like a veil was dropped and I was able to see a whole lot clearer. But something that he said to me when I was talking about that, because I was talking about how, you know, I kind of felt like I wouldn't be able to do it. And one of the reasons I said that was because of my struggles, my ADHD, my BPD. I'm like, I feel like it's kind of a handicap. And it was kind of interesting how he literally, here's a medical doctor. He's been doing it for a while. And he actually encouraged me. He said, well, you know, something like, correct me if I'm wrong. He said, but according to something or other, the Department of Education or something like that, education institutions have to take reasonable accommodations into consideration. And he was basically encouraging me. And, you know, it's now that I think back to it, a little bit, I kind of feel like he was speaking from some form of inside, like, experience. It almost makes me wonder if he might have went through med school with some accommodations, which is not uncommon. But it did really get me thinking. I was just like, after the fact, of course, last night, I was just like, again, I don't want to shoot too high and then let myself down. It's high hopes. Literally like how the Panic at the Disco song goes, it's high hopes. That would get my video banned on YouTube. Anyways, it is food for thought. And it just even like echoed in my brain last night. I was like, Dr. Amelia Green, MD. I'm like, wow. Like, you know how cool that would be to achieve what I thought would have been so amazing to achieve as a teenager. I was into it. And I mean, I know anybody watching this video will probably just also be just as encouraging. I would expect so. Of course, there's going to be the outlier. I mean, I'm already noticing, just a little tidbit I notice about education. I have just been doing these few months of education, and I don't know what it's been doing to me, but I almost feel like my vocabulary and my ability to produce coherent conversation or coherent discussion seems to have actually been improving. Like, there used to be words I would get tripped up on very easily. Like, they just kind of come to mind, and I've been, I'll speak a continuous conversation sometimes, and all of a sudden I impress myself. I'm like geriatric and pediatric, and, I know that's child's play, but still, to me, that was stuff that in the past I'd be like, oh my gosh, what is that word? What is that word? But anyways, I'm going to jump this because this has turned into another 30-minute video. I am so sorry. I'm so sorry. And this literally was a third day in a row video because I just really felt like I need to talk about what I felt since yesterday. And, and I don't need to go to a fancy med school either. There's some pretty good ones out there. I think probably the only thing that actually would kind of make me not so favorable towards it is the fact that typically going to med school requires relocating somewhere in the country. Even my PCP, she went to med school in California, and that's where she met her husband. But something she shared with me about her med school experience was, because I asked her, I was like, well, how did you end up here in Kansas City with your husband and all that? And she told me, she said, oh, she's like, I was originally from here. She's like, I went out to California for med school. And then she's like, then we got married and we came back here because this is where I was from. And I was like, well, that sounds a lot like, now that sounds a lot like something I'd probably do. If I had to go somewhere else in the country for med school, then I'd probably want to come back to Kansas City for the actual practice. That's if that even happens. Anyways, we'll take this from here. Let's see where it goes. I'm gonna stop talking now. I gotta go inside and get my wiper. Today I got like 2.5 days left for me to get, well, at the very least, get my college and get caught up on my psychology class, and then I need to get this textbook all done. I'm halfway through chapter 2. There's 6 chapters I have to get done before Wednesday. Stop ranting, Amelia! Anyways, I'll let you know. Don't forget to like and follow. Like, subscribe, follow. We'll see you later, and sorry. I will try not to do a video this weekend to make up for this super long video again. This is, like, there goes my BPD again, feeling like I'm being a burden, and I hate it. Really hate it when I do that. I'll see you later. Bye now.